So a couple viewers of mine recently put this on my radar, a new Linux distro that looks very similar to Windows 11. In fact, almost identical from this screenshot on the website. It's called Wubuntu, which I will say is a rather clever name as it's based off of Ubuntu Linux, and it's been getting a good amount of attention over the course of the past week or so. But when I started to do some more looking into this, I discovered a couple things that really concerned me. So today, we're going to talk about how this distro is actually nothing new, how it's probably violating a handful of trademarks, and why you might just want to avoid using it. Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. So getting Linux to look like Windows is something that people have been trying to do probably ever since Linux itself was created. And if you're somebody who wants to go that route, Ubuntu is probably something you want to avoid because the company behind this operating system has, well, let's say they've gotten themselves into some hot water in the past. And I use the word company loosely and, well, you'll see why in a minute here. One of the first things that I discovered after looking into this is that Ubuntu is not anything new whatsoever. It's actually a sort of rebrand of another OS called LinuxFX. And you see, these two share a very similar looking website with a lot of the same images and text blurbs. If we scroll down here on the LinuxFX one, you'll see we got those same images down here. They talk about how it's compatible with Windows applications, it's got a full desktop, it's safe and very fast. You got those same things here, although they do change the center one to Microsoft ecosystem instead of full desktop. But yeah, from what I can tell, these are essentially the same exact operating system, but the LinuxFX one is supposed to be the not so Windows themed one. You see they don't have the Windows 11 wallpaper in the background on this first image here. And, you know, they do have a good amount of images with that wallpaper in it, but they don't talk as much about the fact that, like, it's, you know, supposed to look like Windows 11. Although it was not always the case. If you go back to an old snapshot of the LinuxFX site from February of 2022, you'll see they are very big on the Windows imagery. You've got LinuxFX 11 Professional, LinuxFX 11 Windows 10 desktop theme. They're very big on, you know, it looking like Windows 11. They say right here, take advantage of all your knowledge immediately. LinuxFX has the same interface as Windows 10 from Microsoft, which is absolutely an exaggeration because as much as this looks like Windows 11 and Windows 10, it's not the exact same interface. Now you might say, okay, what's the big deal with that, right? They used to go by LinuxFX, they came up with a better name, and they're just going by that now. So who really cares? Well, the thing is, back when they were going by LinuxFX, somebody discovered the terrible practices that they used to store user information. Now, LinuxFX and Ubuntu have a paid version. You can get the free version by going to this link here, and they've got two flavors, one with KDE Plasma and one with Cinnamon. The KDE Plasma one is apparently the Windows 11 theme, and the Windows 10 theme is the Cinnamon one. They also have LinuxFX available for download right from here, and if you go to the LinuxFX site and go to the professional key link up here at the top right, it will just redirect you to the Ubuntu site. So they haven't entirely separated these two. In fact, they do say on the free download page under LinuxFX that Ubuntu is based on LinuxFX, but LinuxFX does not have any icons, themes, or Microsoft products included. So that seems to be the main difference between the two. Now, we'll get to those terrible user data practices in a minute, but I first want to highlight the fact that they don't actually even tell you on this website, like, what you get if you purchase a professional key. I haven't been able to find any information, you know, or at least a comparison between the free and professional versions. They used to have that on the old LinuxFX site, this old snapshot again from 2022. If you go down here, they've got this what is the difference area, but it's not really anything substantial. I mean, you've got Android apps and game support. Okay, well, you can just get an Android emulator on any Linux distro and do that for free. WX Desktop System Settings and Tools. This is actually a system settings program that they developed. We'll take a look at this in Ubuntu. I almost called it LinuxFX once we install it here. Because there is like a settings program that apparently they have developed that, you know, allows you to modify some settings. You don't get access to all of it unless you pay for a license. So that is something that you do get with Professional. Assistant by voice command, like, okay, Microsoft Active Directory, OneDrive in File Manager, and use of all WX desktop resources. You get 30 days with the free edition, unlimited with the professional version. So it's like, it's nothing that really seems like it's wow, you get all this amazing stuff with the professional version. But again, they don't have any of this information on the current site where you can buy Ubuntu. The other thing that's sort of janky is how you actually purchase a license. They don't have like a real store. They just have a PayPal like donation box here, and you have to manually type in $35, or not $356, $35 for a single license. Or if you want to get like 4 licenses, you have to manually put in $140 and like do the math yourself. There's no just like add a certain quantity to your cart. They do have it set up to where if you put in like $1, it won't let you go forward. The minimum amount is 35, so we'll put in 35, we'll hit go, and then you can pay with PayPal or pay with a debit or credit card through PayPal. And yeah, so like it's just very like jankily set up. They don't have like a proper store going on, but that is not the big deal. The big issue is how easy it was to access the database that contained registered user data from everybody who did purchase a license for LinuxFX. This was back before they were going by Ubuntu, and this was first discovered by kernel.eu in this post that gives us the technical details on how the writer figured this out. And the TLDR of it is, LinuxFX's activation program worked by accessing a MySQL database to check if the key you entered into it was valid. And it accessed this database by using credentials stored locally on the system that you were trying to activate. So all somebody had to do was run a tool to monitor for MySQL connections, go into the activation program and type in a bogus key to have it check it against the database, and you would be able to see all of the necessary information required to access the database yourself and dump it if you wanted, which is what this person did. They dumped the database and they discovered that inside of that database contained email addresses associated with each product key and IP addresses of all machines running LinuxFX from when they first tried to access the database. And down here, the author points out that there's only 20,000 entries in this file, and at the time they were claiming they had 1 million users. Now, they seem to have gotten this number from their SourceForge download page, where, if we take a look, when it was first published on SourceForge up until June of 2022, which is like around the time that this happened, they had 1.5 million downloads. So that's where they were getting that number from. If you go back to their, to this snapshot, this is actually from February 2022. You scroll down here, they claim to have 1 million users worldwide, 15,000 downloads this week, and 5 updates this month. Which, I mean, that's not being honest. Like, just because you have a download doesn't mean you have a user, right? So, I mean, still, it's impressive to have over 1 million downloads of your product. Though, to their credit, they did update this wording in a future snapshot from June of 2022, where they changed it to 1.5 million downloads worldwide. And they say right here the data is from SourceForge. So I believe that this 20,000 number is from the amount of machines that actually opened up that activation program and tried to activate LinuxFX, even if they didn't have like a valid product key. Regardless, this is a terrible security practice, just having like login credentials for a MySQL database stored locally on every single installation of LinuxFX. But if you thought this was bad, wait till I show you how the developers responded to it. The best way I can describe what they tried to do here is they tried to put a big band-aid over this whole thing, but it was like one of those really cheap band-aids that like tear off after 2 seconds. This first took the form of trying to prevent people from running a command with elevated privileges by using sudo while the activation program was running. And this is how that in the previous post here, if we scroll down, this is how that the author ran this BPF trace program to monitor for MySQL connections. It had to be elevated with sudo. What they did not account for, though, is the fact that you can use pkexec instead of sudo to also elevate your privileges to run a command as the super user, even though they did that right here in the command they used to prevent you from running something as sudo, which is just insane to me. So all that the author of this post had to do was use pkexec, run a modified version of the command that they did previously in the last post, and you got all the database information once again. What's even worse, though, because yeah, it gets worse than this, believe it or not, the author of this post discovered, after doing some more analysis, that this time around, where the activation program got the credentials to access the MySQL database were now stored on the LinuxFX web server. And it used curl to download that from these 2 links where it was just stored in plain text on linuxfx.org. I mean, I kid you not. It's absolutely absurd. And what's really funny about this whole thing, Well, actually, it's not really funny because this is how this company, and this is why I use the term company loosely, by the way, because how they chose to respond to this very serious security concern being brought to their attention. They obviously did this whole band-aid of a solution, but they also just tried to insult the author of these posts by modifying these links here and adding some stuff to the bottom. We'll just go to this snapshot from May of 2022. Yeah, they added kernel is dumb and kernel is lamer. Kernel is the name of this site, Kernal. So, yeah. And if we go to where they stored the password, which is just, they just added S to the end of HTTP at the very end of the link here. If we go to that, wait till you see this. They changed the password to the database to, I actually forget what it was. I did, yeah, idle. That's right. I mean, like seriously, this is a company that is like providing an operating system and I guess providing support for that operating system. This is how they respond to people, letting them know like, hey, you guys are doing some awful security practices. You gotta fix this. And this is why I think that like it could very likely be just one person behind LinuxFX and Ubuntu. But either way, this is why I say to avoid Ubuntu, because this is the level of professionalism that you're going to be dealing with if you decide to use this product. Oh, and not even to mention, or well, we are going to mention it now, the trademark issues. So they are using like Windows imagery, right? You've got the Windows 11 wallpaper, Windows 11 icons, and they're packaging it with a product that they're selling commercially, which could obviously get Microsoft pretty annoyed at them. But not only that, they're also using the Ubuntu trademark, presumably without permission from Canonical. I'd honestly be very surprised if they actually got permission. And that is outlined on Canonical's intellectual property rights policy page, where if you scroll down to the 4th section here, your use of our trademarks, it says, you will require Canonical's permission to use any mark ending with the letters Ubuntu or Ubuntu, which is sufficiently similar to the trademarks or any other confusingly similar mark, and any trademark in a domain name or URL for merchandising purposes. So I think that this rebrand could have been done to take advantage of the fact that Ubuntu has such a high brand recognition in the Linux community. I mean, it's one of the most popular Linux distros out there, and calling it Ubuntu with like the same style font and, you know, a similar logo kind of makes it sound like it's one of those official flavors of Ubuntu, like Kubuntu or Xubuntu, which are both trademarks owned by Canonical. And I've been going through this website for a little bit here, and I've not found any mention specifically of like, this is not affiliated with Microsoft or Canonical, it's not endorsed by them. Usually if you're trying to maintain any bit of professionalism, you want to clearly disclose, like down in the footer here on your site, like this is not affiliated with any of these companies, even though like the name of it is similar. So yeah, they're not doing that from what I can tell. Their community takes you to their SourceForge page. Their product page takes you also to their SourceForge page. And again, you got the download pages once again. You've got release notes too. They're very, very short. So we are going to take a look at the Plasma one, the one that uses KDE Plasma, which is the Windows 11 themed one, apparently. And yeah, so it just says, it is with the great pleasure the development team has just released version 11.4.4 of Ubuntu Plasma. It updates all system libraries, fixes, and adds several features to the PowerToys system kernel. System tool. And yeah, that's the other thing. PowerToys is the name of a Microsoft suite of programs. You've actually taken a look at them on this channel before. They seem to have renamed it to Power Tools, though. This is the name of their like control panel application that looks like Windows 11's. So yeah, that's the kind of weird history behind Ubuntu and why you probably want to avoid it. And for the rest of this video, we are going to install this, and I'll kind of show you what it's like to use it, so that you don't have to. Now, this is a live CD, so we've got the install icon up here. You see, we also have Microsoft Edge, because, this was released for Linux a while back, so they've got that in here. You've got, like, Microsoft Office. I believe they're just links to the online, yeah, so Excel Online, OneNote Online. You've got quote-unquote Office programs in here. And they also have OnlyOffice, which is another Office suite. Just they've put Microsoft Office icons over it. The Excel one, for some reason, has a C instead of an X. I'm guessing they just used a different icon or something. And yeah, they've pretty much done that with like a bunch of, they put Microsoft icons over non-Microsoft programs. So we're just going to run the installer here. We'll just hit next here. Just go with all the default settings, should be fine. Erase disk, that's fine. And we'll just put in our name here. Super secure password, of course. And yeah, we'll log in automatically, sure. And there we go. Now, while it's installing, you get these random images of just Windows 11 running on various hardware. I think some of these are like Microsoft promotional images. And just like that, we're done. So we're going to restart. And it will probably ask us to eject the installation media. Yeah, there we go. And yeah, if I didn't mention it, you see the boot screen is just literally the Windows 11 logo. With the Ubuntu boot animation. So yeah, not really surprising. And here it is starting up. You see we have like a million, oh my gosh, look at all these windows. Okay, so it started up with the Power Tools control. This is the settings program here that I talked about earlier. This is like the thing that apparently they have created themselves, or the person or people behind this operating system. Let's just go ahead and quickly go to display settings and change the resolution. And so it's notifying us that we're using a free version of Power Toys. It says Power Toys here instead of Power Tools. Yeah, from what I can tell, let me just modify the resolution here. From what I can tell, the only difference between the free and pro version of Ubuntu is the fact that when you go into the settings program, which I think we can just access, can you just go to configure display settings? Is it in where we just were? I think it is. Or no, this is a settings module. Okay, so let's just go to start menu here, system settings. So yeah, it says it's not activated, so you have to verify it, and that will ask you to type in a product key. But I don't know exactly like what is different between, I mean, are there certain things like in Windows 11 where it locks you out of making certain modifications? It looks like all this is, like we go to customization, color. Let's see if it opens up something here. Yeah, we can modify the color, can change it to the dark theme. Apply, and you can change your icons from here. So you've got, yeah, Linux FX 11, Windows 10X presumably, or Windows 10X Dark, Windows 11, and then you've got just a few like default ones in here if you just want to completely get rid of the Windows icon theme altogether. But yeah, I don't really know what you don't get if you don't activate. Like, I haven't really seen anything in here that's like locked out. Maybe it's updating? Check for updates. Oh yeah, and this just opens up like the application, manager here, or the package manager. Here's desktop updates. We also have the Power Toys Insider program, which is literally just taken right from Microsoft. No, it just takes you to linuxfx.org, so not even Ubuntu. Also, you can't actually see the, like, all of the text up here in the address bar. That's hilarious. Yeah, you can't, what the heck? That's, okay. So they don't have the font and all that stuff configured correctly for that. But yeah, that is the, Windows 11-like settings program. You can also apparently just run an exe or an MSI, I guess, right from here. Windows Application Support Module. So this is just Wine. Sure, we'll install additional compatibility modules automatically. And yep, there it is. Just updating the Wine configuration. Could not find a Wine mono package, is needed for .NET applications. Sure, we'll download that and install it for us. All right, so that is doing its thing here. We'll just like move this aside for now, and we'll go into the start menu and check out. I mean, I keep calling it the start menu. I guess that's what you would call it here. And we'll go in and just maybe explore a little bit in here. So you've got like the Android, which is interesting because it said, I guess maybe they added this to the free version. You've got the Dolphin File Manager, which is just with the File Explorer icon from Windows 11. So here it is. It's been skinned with a bunch of Windows 11 icons, which does look very nice. I mean, I will, give them that. You've got ChatGPT. You've got an emoji selector. You have Google Chrome, okay, Gparted, Info Center. So this just tells you a little bit about the system, Windows Ubuntu. That's the other thing. In some places, it just calls itself Windows Ubuntu. So it's straight up like, using two trademarked names there. Let's see the Only Office stuff. So we'll open up Only Office Word. I imagine this won't be like skinned in any way. It'll just have the icon there. So yep, here it is, Only Office. I've never used this particular Office suite before, but it does look very, very Microsoft Office-esque. So Yeah, you'd probably feel right at home here if you were using Microsoft Office. One thing I did find interesting, they've got Microsoft Copilot on here, but this just opens up a headless browser instance. It's not like a separate application. So it just loads, copilot.microsoft.com, and here it is. In fact, you can see like browser task manager. Yep, it's just Edge. And something I was surprised to see in this list is OneDrive. So we've got that on here. You probably also saw this in the settings application as well, because there's this shortcut right here on like the main system page to it. As well as being able to just run like an exe or an MSI right from here through Wine. So we can click on OneDrive, and it will open up what I guess is OneDrive. I've not seen this before. I mean, I was looking up OneDrive for Linux. There are ways to like get OneDrive syncing working on Linux. You see we've got like an Xorg icon up here. It gives this sync error every time it starts. When you say try again, it will bring up the login prompt, or what kind of looks like a login prompt, but what you have to do is you click on login, and then it will bring up a browser window, and you have to log into your Microsoft account. Then you have to copy the content from your browser's address bar and paste it into authentication address to sync OneDrive. And it brings up a real, Microsoft sign-in page. MicrosoftOnline.com is a real Microsoft domain. I did verify that because I just wanted to make sure. But I do have a dummy account that I can sign into. Okay, and we have to let this app access our info, so this is going through a third-party thing. Not super surprising. And let me just look up this, because was this the same client I was looking at earlier? It is. It is. The OneDrive client for Linux. That's exactly what this is. So this is not anything that is, exclusive to this operating system whatsoever. We also have the Ubuntu Device Manager, which if we open this up, we can check out and see what this program is. It is Hard Info 0.6 Alpha. This Ubuntu Power Off, though, is kind of funny. This is a power off dialog, and this is, it looks to be at least, it's got that Power Toys name like the settings application did, or Power Tools, whichever one that they're using in there. So this, I believe, was made specifically for Ubuntu, but it's just kind of pointless because, I mean, you can get to the power controls right here. This is meant to be more like a Windows NT style log off dialog, I guess. So you can choose a bunch of different power options here. You've got help. Let's see what kind of help we can get for this. Okay, it's opening up Edge. We'll just bring us to the... It just brings us to the linuxfx.org site. It looked like it was loading a subdirectory, but I'm guessing that has been removed because it just redirects us to the main site now. So, yeah. Now, I did use Wine to install some Windows programs, so if we go into all apps here, we've got After Dark Games, which I made a video on like ages ago. So we can open this up here, and it will, run just fine. It's running through Wine, so, there it is. I'm not really going to go into any of these games, but you can see that everything is smooth and working like you would expect. But I'll leave that video up in the cards if you want to see my super old video on this. But yeah, so that's Wine, pretty self-explanatory. It lets you run some, not all, definitely, but some Windows programs. But yeah, from what I've seen, most of the programs in here are just, downloaded from other sources and not exclusive to this operating system at all, which is fine. This theme is available for KDE Plasma. There's actually a bunch of Windows 11 themes that you can get. And if you really want your system, your Linux-based system to look like Windows 11, that's really the route I would recommend going. And honestly, just the concept of doing this, like consolidating all this stuff into like an ISO that you install on something, is not really that big of a deal at all. And if that's all this was, I mean, this video would have probably been just hey, here's a Windows 11 themed Linux distro. Let's go ahead and install it on an old computer of mine and see how it works. But the problem that I have with this is just that its reputation has kind of been tarnished by this whole database situation and the developers' handling of it, and the fact that I don't really know what you get when you pay $35, because it's been kind of vague. I was actually able to find some posts from the developer, and it seems more and more like LinuxFX is just kind of a one-man project, which of course is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I was able to find the developer's Reddit account, and he was replying to a few comments on various posts in the Linux subreddit, where people were expressing their concerns over the fact that there was this database leak in the past, And the developer said a few things that were kind of interesting. First of all, he said that the database for activation now uses an API, and he claims that the old method that led to the leak was fixed a week after he was first made aware of it. In another reply, he elaborates on it a bit and basically says that yeah, this stuff happens to other companies too, and it didn't affect the system at all, just the tools we developed, whatever that means, and that no user was harmed, which isn't really accurate at all. I mean, data for those people who purchased the professional license was in this database, and now it's out there somewhere. I mean, sure, it's not like legal names and payment info and addresses, but emails and IP addresses are things that some may want to keep private and not expect to end up in some data dump online due to lackluster security practices from a company they made a purchase from. In a different post, he also talks about the Windows 11 theme used and says that Ubuntu is just Ubuntu with open source themes, but that the applications developed specifically for it, like the settings program, are not open source and is what they optionally charge to get support for. And I think he's talking about you supporting them, because in a different post he says that we just ask for support to continue developing our tools, and even if people don't support us, the tools will continue to work normally. So it sounds like the $35 is more of a donation, but it's not set up that way at all. I mean, it's got like a whole license key that you get, and that's still the case. When you click on verify here, it brings up that product key, entry thing here. So if all the developer was using this thing for was to get donations, then why not set it up that way from the beginning? Just, have the free version, have a PayPal donate link on your site, and you wouldn't have to have a database or anything to keep any, user information at all. And then this database leak would have never happened, and this would have just been like a Windows 11 themed Linux distro that a couple YouTubers like myself would probably make a video on at some point. So yeah, it's honestly a little confusing, and that's why I wanted to make this video, just to kind of make people aware, if you didn't already know, that Linux FX and Ubuntu are in fact the same thing, and that, you might want to avoid using it just because of this whole database situation in the past. It really turns me off from it personally, really more so because of the developer's response to it. I mean, I think that it could have been handled a lot better, a lot more professionally. There could have been more responsibility taken, instead of just having the attitude of like, yeah, this thing happened and it happens to a bunch of other companies, and at least we fixed it and people didn't get hurt. Yeah, there you have it. That is Ubuntu in all of its glory, I guess you could say. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, get subscribed, turn on notifications if you haven't already. And if you really enjoyed this video and want to get early access to my future episodes, I do have a Patreon, or you could become a channel member by hitting that join button. But either way, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.